It's great to be able to spend some time today talking about some of the most important issues that face our Commonwealth. And although when we look at PEMA, we're not seeing the big impact on our state budget. There's other departments that make a much larger appearance on our balance sheet. But what you do and what we see in our communities is really difficult to overstate. I wanted to take an opportunity specifically to talk to Commissioner Trego. You and I have had the opportunity to work very closely together on coming up with what some of these solutions need to be. And as we've discussed, we know that we're in the middle of a volunteer crisis in the Commonwealth. And it was interesting in the answer that you just gave, you talked about the old-time idea of a fire department being the hub of our social activity. And that is such an insightful comment because I think that part of what we're facing is a demographic shift. What people are looking for out of their organizations is different. It used to be that people would go to the firehouse to figure out what's going on in town. Now they scroll Facebook or they scroll Instagram. So we're fighting some things that we can't fix in a budget process or fix with a government policy. But there are certainly things we can do to help because we know that people have gotten busy. People have gotten involved in a lot of other things that take up their time. And so as we've discussed, I think that some of the things that really take up the time of our volunteers is one, training, and two, fundraising. And so the question is, how can we address some of the challenges with fundraising and training to then make lives easier on our volunteers, to make it easier for them to serve their communities? So I wanted to ask you to maybe outline some of the things that we could do to start making a marked difference to try to make life easier on people who want to step up and volunteer for their community.
Sure. Let me tackle the one that I don't know the answer to first, and that is the fundraising. I don't know how we can get back to what we were before because the cost of all the equipment has gone up dramatically. An example, one of the first pieces of apparatus that I helped spec was $50,000. Today, you couldn't buy that same piece for less than $650,000. When I asked the chief one time, they had a used aerial device. I said, "What did you pay for that?" He said, "I don't know in dollars, but I can tell you in chicken wings." So that's kind of the issues that you run into. The cost of equipment has gone up. The people that are there to help do that, to help raise that money, are no longer there. So I don't know what the answer is to that, but I think the public needs to recognize how much the cost of all this has gone up.
And if I could interject on one little thing, one of the things that your office had worked very closely with me and my colleagues on was a little tweak. We know we have to reauthorize the State Fire Commissioners Grant Program this year. And when we had put House Bill 1834 through the House Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee, I know your office worked with us on putting together an amendment that would allow, since you talked about these bigger projects, whether it's the cost of a building, the cost of a truck. And one of the proposals that we need to get over the goal line, it passed the House, it went to the Senate, it's still sitting there, is the fact that we could allow volunteer fire companies to put together up to 5 years of their grant in order to save towards something bigger, because sometimes we're talking about funding. So the idea of being able to match local funding with some sort of a grant or loan program to be able to stack those things together would be helpful, and that's something that your office was very supportive of. So I'm hoping that either in 1834 or a similar vehicle, we can get that provision done when we reauthorize that program this year.
Correct. That's a great idea, because as it stands now, you can't hang on to that money. You can't put it in, and you have to spend it within that year and provide us the documentation of what you spent it on. Yes. So I think that's an excellent idea, especially those people that want to save enough for a down payment, if you will.
And I appreciate that. And that was an idea that came locally out of one of my local fire departments as they were trying to save for a bigger project. So that's something I want to continue working with you on. If we could continue on to talk a little bit more about the kind of the 600-pound gorilla in the room, the training issue. And we had a little bit of a discussion, I know, with some of my colleagues that asked questions earlier. But in my area, we're talking about rural access to training. Somebody's trying to get to a fire school. It might be a long drive, but I know we have opportunities to try to put together some online training, which could make it easier. Instead of people spending their weekends, they could do it in the comfort of their living room on a Tuesday night. Could you talk a little bit about where we can go with that and what we need to do to go further to partner with you, what legislation might be needed to help get your office where it needs to be to help expand access to training, make it easier?
Sure. Thank you very much for the opportunity to sit and discuss that with you. Since we last spoken, we did receive information from our vendor who we purchased our curriculum from for our entry-level training program, who is willing to work with us to put as much of that in an online format as what they can. So our initial goal is to take that first program, that first 16 hours of the Intro to the Fire Service, which, I'll start with this. I believe that we need to meet the needs of those that want to take online training. But we also have to recognize this is a very dangerous job. You can't learn how to put a ladder up, how to advance a hose, how to put self-contained breathing apparatus on by watching a video. Okay, so having said that, what we want to do is take that learning process of the psychomotor skills, if you will, and make that separate. Okay, so our goal is to try by the end of this year to have that first entry-level training program 99.9% online. The end of that 16 hours, the student is to demonstrate 3 skills, okay? Rather than have them go somewhere for 16 hours and take the face-to-face program, what we'd like to have available is they can take that online, take a written quiz, and then someone in their station who is qualified can have them demonstrate those skills in front of them, sign them off, and they don't have to leave the station or their home to get it done. I think that's a win-win because it's a less time that they have to be in a classroom, and the other is they're actually working with the equipment that they're going to be expected to use when they work with the fire department.